this live lesson or live stream, as you could call it. In this lesson, we are going to discuss some simple basics. You might want to get your books out, your pianos out, and learn along with me. And if you have any questions during the lesson, don't forget to leave a comment or reach us through the chat, and we'll definitely be answering it at the end of the lesson. So yeah, without any delay, let's get cracking. So first off, the topic for today is intervals. So let's just look at what is intervals. Let's get some basics out of the way. First off, an interval could be defined as the building blocks of both melody as well as harmony. So with melody, what tends to happen is you'll play one note followed by the next one. With harmony, what tends to happen is you'll play one note together, but their emotion stays the same. So for instance, if you play, let's say, a D and an A flat, when you play them together, they sound quite tense or quite unstable as a sound, and when you play them one by one, they still sound rather unstable. So whether you play it melodically or harmonically, it doesn't really matter much in terms of the emotion. However, where you play it might matter slightly, whether you play it lower in the instrument or higher, and so on and so forth. Similarly, if you take something which is supposedly calm, like a perfect fifth, and if you play it melodically, sa, pa, or if you play it harmonically, it's going to have the same vibe. So the way I like to define an interval, it's basically the vibe, for want of a better word, basically. So it's the vibe that is created, or the mood, or the whatever word you want to use, which is fancier than what I just said. The thing which is created, or the bond or the gel that is created when two notes collide. Okay, it is not really the distance between two notes. I think that's a very simplistic definition. It's not so inspiring either. So it's the vibe when two notes collide. So that vibe can be measured using, I guess, basic human emotions: happy, sad, scary, maybe this one, or I don't know what else. Now I've run out of emoji choices, but music will give you even more emojis than I can draw. Okay, so intervals are basically many in number, many in name, but in simple words, how we like to name them. And today's meeting would be how to remember them. You might all know the names and some formulas here and there, but I'll teach you how to remember them. So that's the goal. So the first kinds of so the first thing you need to know about these intervals is they have a name: perfect, diminished, augmented, major, capital M, minor, and then a number. The number could range from 2 to 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what we do is we say perfect something, diminished something, and so on. And as it turns out, the perfect, the diminished, and the augmented are designed to be tagged along with the 4 and the 5. Perfect, diminished, augmented. All the other stuff, the 2, the 3, the 6, and the 7, are either going to be major intervals or minor intervals. In some cases, they could also be augmented and diminished. So the way that formula works is, if you sharpen a major interval, you will get an augmented interval. Sharpening basically means going up a chromatic step. So for instance, E, what is sharpening of E? Sharpening of E doesn't necessarily mean going to E sharp. There is no E sharp to begin with, at least I don't find one. So sharpening would mean going to F, just raising it, going up a step. So if C to E is a major third, then C to E sharp, if you would like to call it that, is an augmented third. And C to E flat would basically be a minor third. Okay, so when you flatten a major, you would be getting minor. And the same goes with perfect. When you sharpen a perfect, you're going to get augmented. When you flatten a perfect, instead of minor, you're going to get diminished. And when you further flatten a minor, you're going to again get diminished. So in this case, you could argue that C to D is a major second, correct? But you could also argue that C to E flat flat is a diminished something, or sorry, C to D, let's do that again. So if you take C to E, that was a major third. You take C to E flat, that's a minor third because you're flattening that. But then C to E flat flat would be a diminished third, even though C to D is also a major second. So you get what I'm saying? So an interval has a name and a number. So you merge the name and the number, and you get an interval which you have to name. And intervals within the octave are there, and also intervals beyond the octave. In today's class, we'll do within the octave, because beyond the octave you need to know chord theory a bit more in order to go beyond. Okay, so now in the next page of paper, I'm going to look at how we are going to remember these intervals, not on the keyboard, which we sometimes do, but in music in general. Okay, so the way to remember this would be you use the circle of fifths as a start, as your base. So let's draw the circle of fifths together. You could say the circle of fifths is also called the circle of fourths. The circle of fourths is where you're building the notes in counterclockwise, while circle of fifths is where you're building the notes in clockwise. Okay, so if you go in fifths clockwise, you'll say C, G, D, A, E, B. You're going in perfect fifths basically. And if you go in counterclockwise, you're going in perfect fourths, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat. So let's just draw that particular circle together. So it starts with C, which is here by the way. So C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, also known as D flat. Sorry, F sharp, also known as G flat. What am I saying? Anyway, D flat, then A flat, E flat, B flat, F, C, and that's the circle of fifths. All you need after this is to draw a neat circle. There we go. So you have a good way to remember it, I guess. 12 o'clock would be C, 6 o'clock would be F sharp. If you look at it as a clock, because there are 12 elements, right? Another way people do it is they chop it up into two parts and they say, okay, this side of, C are all your sharp scales, this side of C are all your flat scales. Okay, so a lot of things, but what we like to use this circle for is first of all intervals, which is our topic for today. So if you would like to learn a perfect fifth interval, all you have to do is memorize the circle of fifths, because that's all it is. So C is perfect fifth is G, G is perfect fifth is D, D is perfect fifth is A, and so on and so forth. And if you'd like to remember perfect fourths, there we have it. C's perfect fourth is F, and then F's perfect fourth is B flat. And the thing about intervals is they have nothing much to do with scales. So you could have any scale, even a minor scale has a perfect fourth and a perfect fifth too. A major scale also has the perfect fourth and perfect fifth. So they are like the building blocks, the universal topic of music. Once you learn this only, then you have scales to begin with. Okay, so perfect fourth and perfect fifth are set in play. How do we remember this once more? A perfect fourth would basically be a counterclock neighbor of anything, and a perfect fifth would be a clock neighbor. Okay, so perfect fifth like that, you remember. Is that clockwise? Yeah, I guess it is. And then you go perfect fourth. So the start to remember intervals is what is the perfect fifth from anywhere, what is the perfect fourth from anywhere. You should not really have any doubts. And also on your instruments like the piano, which I'm using right now, try to form it on your get used to it with your fingers. C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, D flat or C sharp, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, C. Okay, get used to those shapes, and what I like to do is just go ascending with the whole circle. C, G, D, A, E, B. Good exercise. It'll also help you play eventually to play major chords, minor chords, and well, in this case, power chords, because the perfect fifth with the octave is generally a power chord which we use in rock songs. Right? So the perfect fifths are also building blocks to form major chords, minor chords, and a few other things like the seventh chord, major seventh, minor major seventh, and so on and so forth. So remember your perfect fifths, remember your perfect fourths. Now beyond that, you'll have to figure out your major thirds and minor thirds. Now there are no tricks as such to remember this. The perfect fifth and fourth has a trick. You could develop a trick for yourself. For instance, the major third, the minor third. How can I remember it? I'll give you 3 ways. Okay, and remember, with any interval, your job is to know 12 of them, because there are 12 notes music has to offer, at least more traditionally learnt music. So there are 12 intervals of everything, isn't it? So if you take the major third, one way to remember the major third would be it is 4 chromatic steps from anywhere. And one way to remember the minor third is it is 3 chromatic steps from anywhere. So if you take C, that's 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4. So knowing E as the major third of C should be as easy or not so complicated as now knowing the major third of D flat, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So a nice exercise might be to practice all your major thirds chromatically. There we go. And this is where you might want to kind of map it out visually for yourself. So you'll have C, E, and then you have F, A. So all the white major thirds are what now? C, E, F, A, G, B, correct? And there might be a few more which I've forgotten, but let's see. You have white-black major thirds. What will be white-black major thirds? Maybe B to our D sharp could be white-black, right? Maybe A to C sharp could be white-black. Maybe D to F sharp would be white-black. And E to G sharp would be white-black, and so on. So you have this system going on. There may be a few more, so let's see. Then you have black-white major thirds. So you could remember like that. What are the black-white major thirds out there? The B flat for sure. Yeah, the B flat D. Then you could have D flat,
C sharp, yeah.
D flat F, E flat G,
E flat G,
A flat C. So far we have encountered 4 plus 4 plus 3, 10. 2 more left to finish this puzzle off. Let's do the black major thirds, for which we have our F sharp, also known as G flat. And the next question is, are there any more in life? Have I forgotten one? I might have actually forgotten one. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. No, actually 4, 8,
actually it's all
11.
12.
Yeah. Great. So this is it. Major thirds could be remembered like this. You could remember them as 4 steps, 3 steps, or if you still rely on your trusty circle of fifths, which I would encourage you to trust while practicing your instrument, the major third would basically be 4 o'clock from anywhere, okay, and the minor third will be 3 o'clock before. Okay, you could still use the circle of fifths to form your major and minor intervals. Also, if you happen to remember your scales, like your major and minor scale, you will find that the major third is there in the major scale. It's also there in other scales like the Mixolydian and so on, but it's there in the major scale. So you can remember it that way. The minor third will be there in the minor scale, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is your thirds. Another way to remember your thirds, I guess, if you really want, would be via scales like the other, all the different minor scales or all the scales that have minor thirds. You could say, okay, natural minor has this, harmonic minor has this, melodic minor, and they all have that same minor third in common. You could write it down and remember. But I think the best option on the piano or any stringed instrument would be to just map out the shapes and remember it. So now is where hopefully I can propose some kind of a trick or a shortcut method to remember all the remaining intervals. So we've done the third, we've done the fourth, and we've done the fifth, we've done major and minor third. So let's get to some of the other intervals that music has to offer. Okay, over to a new page. There we go. So what's next? Let's look at what can we do with a perfect fifth. We can flatten it or we can raise it. So if you take a perfect fifth, you take it sharp 1, you're going to get yourself a augmented interval. You flatten it, you're going to get yourself a diminished interval. Okay. So an example of this would be, if you know that C to G is a perfect fifth, then you should also probably know that if you raise the G up 1 to G sharp, you would call that as an augmented fifth. And if you lower the G by 1, you could call that as a diminished fifth. So you have augmented fifth and you have a diminished fifth. And similarly, if you have this ecosystem, C to F, that's a perfect fourth, right? And if you just raise this, you're going to get an augmented fourth. Another way to put this forward for you people would be augmented 5 is the same, augmented fourth. Let me write that again. There we go. Augmented fourth is the same pitch, it's the same thing as a diminished fifth, and we collectively call this as the tritone. So how do you remember an augmented fourth, diminished fifth, or tritone? The same way. So you have the circle of fifths. Let's take E. Where's the circle? Let me bring it up. Yeah. Go up a perfect fifth, you get B. What about augmented fourth? It would be, you go up a perfect fourth, which is A, and raise that to A sharp. But A sharp is equal to B flat. So if you say in terms of tritone, you can just say, okay, it's B minus 1 equals B flat. Or you can say A plus 1 equals A sharp. So a good way to remember these tritones, and you should remember all the intervals, would be perfect fifth minus 1 or perfect fourth plus 1. And of course, in our trusty circle of fifths which you see here, this would be the tritone of C. Okay. So the farthest point away from a point to the next point, which would be the diameter, right? Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. Otherwise, I have to brush up my geometry. So this farthest distance C to F is called as a tritone. And the other interesting fact is F sharp. F sharp's tritone is C. So C's tritone is F sharp, F sharp's tritone is C. So you just have to remember a sum total of how many tritones. How many tritones you should remember in life? The answer is actually not 12. The answer is 6. You can remember 6 pairs of tritones. What would be those 6 pairs of tritones again? C pairing up with F sharp, E flat pairing up with A, B flat pairing up with E, D pairing up with A flat, F pairing up with B, and G pairing up with D flat, also known as C sharp. So the main trick you need to remember with tritones is remember them as pairs musically also. But quickly, if you don't know it immediately, you should know circle of fifths. You know the fifth or you know the fourth. Fourth plus 1, fifth minus 1. So that is tritone. And same story we are going to do, or same procedure we are going to do for all the other intervals out there. Okay, so the next interval, what comes after we finished root, we finished thirds, we'll come to seconds shortly. We've done all kinds of fifths now. So now let's do the sixth. Why not? So we have two kinds of sixths in music. We have the major sixth and the minor sixth. Okay, so the first thing is how I can help you remember them. So you have the major sixth, which is equal or equivalent to or similar in pitch to the diminished seventh. I'll come to this shortly. Okay, and to form a major sixth, it is perfect fifth plus 2 chromatic steps. Perfect fifth plus 2 chromatic steps will give you this. A diminished seventh, if you know the major seventh, hopefully you do that, it will be major seventh minus 2, because major 7 minus 1 I told you is minor. Then you minus 2 from there, you will get diminished. Okay, or if you really want, octave minus 3. But I would like to go for this one, at least to start off with, perfect 5 plus 2. And then the next thing under play will be minor sixth, which is also called as augmented fifth. So depending on the use case scenario, if you're on a minor scale, you have to call it minor sixth. If you're on a scale which has an augmented fifth, or rather, the way I see it is, if the scale does not have a perfect fifth, then it might have a diminished fifth or an augmented fifth. A scale like a Locrian has a diminished fifth, right? And an augmented fifth, there are a few scales which have an augmented fifth as well. So a minor sixth or an augmented fifth could be looked at in a couple of ways. Perfect 5 plus 1 step, or else you can look at it as major sixth minus 1 gives you minor sixth, and that's about that. Okay, so maybe this is helpful for you since you already know the perfect fifth. So sixth is over. What else is left now for us to do? We have seventh. Seventh and seconds are really easy. So a major seventh would equals to octave minus 1, and a minor seventh would equals to octave minus 2. Minor seventh is also called as a dominant seventh. And then you have the next option, which is the major second. Major second, I would call it as root plus 2. And root plus 2 is pretty much the same as the octave note. This is easy to remember. Minor second is also known as root plus 1. And just to give you a bonus kind of add-on to all of this, the second is equal to ninth, the 4 is equal to 11, and the 6 is equal to 13, and the third is equals to 10. Okay, so in jazz music, you can alter these notes. So for example, you can have a 9 flat, you can have a 9 sharp, you can have 11 sharp, you can even have a 13 flat, basically. So it's just the same as 2, 4, and 6. It's just that it will be up the octave, and also you will need a seventh in the chord. So you need to refer to it from a chordal perspective in order to get these 9, 11s and 13s into your system. Okay, so just to recap, we've covered every single interval music has to offer. Initially, we talked about what exactly is an interval. An interval is the vibe when two musical notes combine. The vibe could be whatever emoji you decide to assign to it. Intervals could be harmonic or melodic. And then, of course, you can catalog them more and say this is tense, this is resolution, this is anticipation. You can really start classifying things as per your requirement. Okay. The names of the intervals could either be perfect, major, minor, diminished, augmented, and then the numbers would range from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of course, I might have forgotten to mention that 1 is called something. We say unison. and 8 is called something we say octave. Unison being 1 and octave being 8. So instead of saying 8, we say octave. You don't say perfect 8, you say perfect octave. Okay, and then this is how they all relate to each other: major, minor, diminished, augmented. This is the circle of fifths where we started off everything. You go clockwise, it gives you fifth. You go counterclockwise, it gives you fourths. And then the circle can continue to be used for other intervals too. The thirds, try to remember them by shapes. That would be very useful. Piano shapes in this case, major thirds, minor thirds. Then we looked at all this other stuff. We looked at how you can build tritones, how you can build augmented fourths, diminished intervals, diminished fifth. Then we looked at equating a major sixth with a diminished seventh, how to form that using these tricks. So the trick is very simple in a nutshell. Remember, mug up your circle of fifths, step 1. Step 2, after mugging up that circle of fifths, mug up the thirds and the fifths and the fourths also by shape. Get that under your belt. And after that is over, take it as it comes, as songs keep coming your way or as challenges keep coming your way. Don't take too much of information. Learn sixths, learn thirds, learn seconds, and learn sevenths as per your convenience. So yeah, on that note, that was my lesson on intervals, and I hope you found the talk or this set of information useful for you, and I hope you can use them in your music as well. So that's about that. So just a conclusion of this lesson, if any of you have doubts or any lessons, or if you'd like to learn anything at our school, you can join us either by doing a course at Nathaniel School of Music, by either packaging a 6-month semester, or if you're a beginner, you can just do our foundation course. And also, if you'd like more structured content, you can try our video courses, which are available on, again, nathanielschool.com. You can find a few links in on our website or on our YouTube channel. And you can also support our channel. You can support the work that we do to help us shoot and make more content like this or any of the other YouTube videos you do by being a loyal Patreon supporter, which means a lot for the channel. And you also get to interact with me in classes, which we are looking to organize very often, where you can clear some musical doubts and so on and so forth. Right. On that note, thanks a ton for being part of this live session, and do share the video with your friends. It will also be hanging on YouTube somewhere. And what happens in our live is we entertain a few of our Patreon guests to come on board and attend the class. So if you'd like to be a Patreon member, come on board. There is a Zoom call, and we have students asking doubts or ready to ask doubts, and it'll be great to hear from them now. And I will sign off from the YouTube universe. So cheers, catch you in the next video, and practice hard.